So let's give it up for Bill and Wendy Roach.
Of course, Taylor called me billionaire a while ago. I said, hey, I like that name. So if you don't know me, I know the sad part is I'm so old, I know a lot of your parents. Who said grandparent? Ooh, wow. Carson, that's ugly. That's about as ugly as your hair. No. Let me real quick. Micah and Morgan Rains also help us. Couldn't be here tonight, so they help us with this ministry, and so they are a great part. And so one of the things we wanted to do tonight, I thought it'd be great if you kind of got to know us and kind of knew our background a little bit. So I freaked Wendy out when I said she had to do this, and she was like, "Oh, okay." So Wendy's going to talk to you, and Ricky laughed and said she has never talked a little bit in her life. So I'll let Wendy go, and then I'll tell you a little bit about my background. And then, as Ricky always says, there's always how many points to a good sermon? 3 points. So I'll give you 3 points tonight, and then we'll wrap it up. But come on up, Woo.
I do not like a microphone, but okay. Anyway, I want to just introduce myself. I'm Wendy. A lot of people in here may not know me. We really have not got a chance to work with you guys. I'm going to take these off until I have to read. As you get older, your eyes get bad. But anyway, but as Bill said, we work with the young adults, which a lot of you guys are slowly going to that area. And I do, as Taylor was saying, have a passion for young people. We have worked with the youth at our previous church for many years, and I feel like I can relate to you guys just because of a lot of stuff that you're going through. I've been there. It is on a different scale now as far as with social media and internet and all that stuff. That has changed the world in good and bad ways. But I just kind of want to talk a little bit about myself so you guys will get to know me. We're both going to Big Bear, so we're excited about that. Big Bear. Big Bear. But so I would definitely want to get to know you guys a little more, and I want y'all to get to know me more. I'm excited about that trip. We've been on many youth trips in the past, and I know just getting away and out of town is when you really can just have that intimate time, not only with each other, but especially with God. And I've been praying for Big Bear. I'm excited of what God has in store for each of us, not just the young people, but us old people too. Because that's the beauty, and when you go and do those things, you guys may think this is for us, but us older people can get as much out of it as y'all. So I just kind of want to talk a little bit about my background. I grew up around here. I actually grew up in Richmond Hills, which is the Berea Library. Not sure if you guys are familiar with that area. I went to Armstrong Elementary, Berea Middle, and then I ended up at Traverse West High School. So this is kind of where I've been my whole life. I went to USC. It was USC Spartanburg back in the day. It's upstate now. There for college. Got a degree in elementary ed. So when I first got out of college, I wasn't able to find a teaching job because there was so many people going into the field of education. So I subbed for a year and then got a job at Alexander Elementary, which is not too far from here, teaching second and third grade combination. So that was a tough first year of teaching, to think it was 2 grades combined. So that was rough. But then I got pregnant, had my first baby, stayed home, and that's kind of the background of that. But Bill and I actually met. I was at Monaghan Baptist Church. That's where I grew up, not too far from here. And he started going there. He was at Furman. Then he got a teaching job at Greenville High and was trying to find a church. So he ended up at Monaghan, which God led him there. I believe that. Met. We were actually engaged 3 months after we met. If you believe that. It was quick. And then we got married about 10 months later, and this year will be 30 years. We've been married. Long time. But it just, our story as far as how we met, I tell my children, which I'll get to them in a minute, is if God has a path and a plan for you, it's going to happen, because there really was no reason for mine and Bill's paths to cross except for God. I mean, for him to lead him to Monaghan and the way all that worked out. So just remember that when you're praying for your mate, future mate, God has somebody out there for you. You just have to trust him and pray specifically for that. But I have 3 children. Presley's 20, about to be 26. Ferris is 22. And then Case, my baby, he'll be 21 this August. So, yeah, 24, yeah. But and I have a new grandbaby. She's 6 months old, Carter. Some of y'all have seen her here at church and stuff. But I want to go back to earlier years, though, especially high school, being at TR. I was a cheerleader. I was kind of in the popular group, but I really wasn't. If that makes any sense. All my friends were the popular kids and stuff, and just being a cheerleader. But my whole time in high school, I felt like I was kind of on the outside looking in, because I didn't party. I didn't do the drinking and the things and stuff, and that a lot of my friends or people I hung out with did. So there were times that I got made fun of because I didn't do those things. And sometimes it could be lonely because I chose not to do that stuff. But it got to a point where even in college, there would be times for parties and things and stuff, and I would actually be with friends and would go there, but I wouldn't partake in those things. And it got to a point where it's like I had something that almost nobody around me didn't have, and it was I didn't choose to drink. To this day, I've never drank before in my life, and a lot of people don't believe that. But it got to a point where it was something to be proud of, because there wasn't many people out there that could say they hadn't done that. So I feel like that became part of my witness. But at the same time, I want to say this, which I think is an important thing. I didn't stay away from necessarily those people that did those things. I was friends with them, but it's a fine line with hanging out with people doing those things and partaking in those things. It's kind of like the scenario of, like, if I was standing up here and Bill's down there and he's doing those things and I'm not, and I'm going to try to pull him up to me, it's going to be easier for him to pull me down than me to pull him up. So I had to remember that too. But I think with Jesus, I look back at when Jesus was here on earth, who did he hang out with? It wasn't the people that, like me, that didn't drink. He hung out with the worst of the worst. So I'll use that to say that, I still had friends even as an adult. I was a big runner for a while. We did a lot of half marathons and races and things. And all my friends that I did that with, they all drank. And I'm not, they're adults. They're over 21 and stuff. But I chose not to do that. And, that was a witness that I feel like I had for them. And they all respected me for that. But I could still hang out with them and have a good time. But I felt like God was using me in their lives for that, just a thing. So, I don't want to put across that you can't hang out with somebody or you can't be friends with somebody that's doing those things, but at the same time, you have to have your morals and standards and stay strong in those. And I feel like with this youth group, you guys have that as far as strength. There's strength in numbers. And like I say, I have a little grandbaby that's 6 months old now, and I'm gonna blink and she's gonna be your age. And I pray, she has a youth group like this, because, never take for granted what you guys have, because there's a lot of kids out there in this world that don't have this, that don't have people that they can reach out to or text and say, can you pray for me? Can you do this? Or I need help with something. So just remember that. Don't ever take what you have, for granted, because it could be a lifeline for somebody that's really struggling. But I just want to kind of just wrap up and just say that I'm excited to get to know you guys. I do have a passion, like I say, for young people. I've been where you are. I know it's hard just with the temptations and the struggles, because a lot of the stuff y'all are going through, we've been there. I've been there. And it takes, just like say having a good friend, a buddy that chooses not to do those things, to have that support, that strength. But I just want you to know that hopefully as you get to know me better and I get to know you better, that you feel like you can, trust me, and that I can be there for you. I want to get to know you guys. I feel like Big Bear is going to be a great opportunity for us to get to know each other better. But as I said, I just want you to know that I love you guys, and that I'm praying for you as far as just the day-to-day stuff that you're going through. Life is hard, and there's a lot of distractions and things and stuff that you guys go through on the daily. And sometimes maybe you feel like you can't talk to your parents about things, and that's what I feel like Taylor and Sarah and even me and Bill and Ricky, it's sometimes easier to talk to somebody that's not your mom or dad, about stuff. Josh and Micaiah. So just, I think that's it in a nutshell. Let me make sure. Let's see. Just the young adult, like I said, I think it's important for you guys, once you do get out of high school, that's the age group that really falls through the cracks. See, y'all have all these things when you're in high school, and then once you get into the real world as far as working or going to college, that's where it falls off with young people being involved in church and doing those things. So that's what Bill and I really want to we're working hard to do, is make sure you guys don't fall through the cracks after you get out of the youth group, because that's probably the one age group that is unchurched the most, I would say, hands down. So hopefully we will get to know each other better and get that relationship, and once you get out of high school, it'll just continue and slide over. We'll already have a great relationship. But that's kind of all I wanted to say, I think. Like I say, I'm looking forward to getting to know y'all better, and I already know some of you guys, but that's it.
Good job. Woo-woo. So that's one side, mine's the other. So, and I've got notes just so that I don't, because my life's very complicated. It's like spaghetti. So I'll try to stick to my notes. So if you ever want to really get in, I have one thing about us, we're very transparent. I'll tell you anything. And as I go through this, something sparks and you go, I'm going to catch him later. I'll share with you my struggles and all of those things. So real quick, I grew up in Georgia. So I'm not from around here. A lot of people think I'm from here, and I went to Brea High School, and I'm not. I'm from Georgia originally. 2 older sisters. I have a mom and a dad. So I had the American Dream household. I had a big family. There were lots of cousins that I went to school. Very small town, very small school. I had 72 people in my graduating class. So just so you understand, I understand small community. Y'all think TR small or Brea easily? All those are huge compared to what I went to school in. So just so you understand this too, I was that fat kid. 7th grade, I weighed almost as much in 7th grade as I do right now. Okay, I wore 38 30s in 7th grade. 38 waist, 30 length. I was a little fat kid. And so with that, Satan began to plant seeds of insecurity in my life as a young age. So insecure things, sitting on a couch, holding a pillow, cover up my stomach. All those kind of things that happen at a young age. So that was one thing. I'm probably going to get an amen with this one, but I am very A-type. I like things to be in order. I like things to be structured. Wendy says I like to be in charge. But the way my mind works, I'm very much, and it's funny. I see AJ Micah said that the other day, and I was like, oops, somebody who understands me. So you understand, my mom had me on drugs when I was young. She drugged me to church every time the doors were open. Every time. Some of y'all are getting a little bit too, So I was that, my dad didn't go to church. My dad believed he went earlier in their marriage. And then, like Ricky talks about with church, a lot of times he got hurt by church people. And he swore he wasn't going to church with all those hypocrites. I've heard that my entire life. And so, since I've been alive, he might have darkened the doors of a church 2 or 3 times. And it was usually if I could beg him when I was singing or something like that, I could get him to come. But other than that, he wasn't going to church. But my mom drug us to church all the time. So at 7 years old, I didn't get saved. I joined the church. I mean, I got baptized and I walked the aisle and I said that, but I didn't really get saved because I didn't know anything about it. That's one thing to kind of echo what Wendy said. Y'all don't realize what you got. I had a old-time Baptist preacher that said, "Okay, son, good." He just dunked me. I came up. I had no clue what I just did. Just kept on living life. Okay, I guess that's it. Nobody ever discipled me. My youth group was a joke. I was too cool for it anyway, so I didn't really ever grow. I graduated from high school, and I say this not to brag, but this kind of tells a story of me too. I was 6th in my class because I didn't want to be first because all those guys were nerds, and I didn't want to be a nerd. But I was a pleaser, so that's why I got as high as I could, and I'm good. Just so you understand about the way my mind works, I made straight A's in high school. I made 1 B. But that's the way it was in my house. I feared my daddy too much not to do that. And Wendy said something a while ago that reminded me, this is not in my notes, but I want to tell you this story. You're going to have disappointments in your life. I wanted to go to West Point. I had done everything. I had the grades. I had everything I needed to go to West Point. I had played football there, and so I was good to go. All I had to do was make 1,000 on the SAT. Okay? So y'all are starting here. I made straight A's in high school, 1,000 on SAT. Some of y'all are going, "Oh, that's easy." I made a 980. I took it 4 times, never got past a 980. So I didn't go to West Point. If I'd have gone to West Point, I wouldn't be talking to y'all, more than likely. I wouldn't know Wendy. My life would have been completely different. So instead, I had several offers to play football in places. I ended up going to Furman, okay, 265 miles from home, almost 4 hours from home. I told y'all I'm from a little bitty small town, 72 people in my graduating class. You can imagine I was a big fish in a little bitty pond. I go to Furman, 4 hours away. I don't know anybody. I'm like a little bitty fish in a huge ocean. And it's like, okay. So college was very hard for me. Tough time. I was the first person in my family to go to college. So I felt like all the weight of the world, you have to succeed because nobody else has done it. Both my sisters got married as soon as they graduated high school. Neither one of my parents had a college degree. And so it was like, okay, I'm the last hope, so I've got to do this. High school was easy for me. I could just listen and get it. College was a little different. At the end of my sophomore year, I had a 2.3. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to flunk out of college. Finally got it all figured out, and it was okay there. But I got hurt my junior year of college, so I had major back surgery. So they went in and took out over 60% of my disc in between my last 2 vertebrae in my back. 20 years old, having major back surgery. And they told me, said, if you play again and you get hit the wrong way, there's not much cushion in between your 2 vertebrae. If they go the wrong way, it'll cut your spinal cord. You'll be paralyzed waist down the rest of your life. I'm good. So that ended my career. Luckily, they paid for school for my last year of school, and so I stayed and finished up. But that ended my career. So this started a downward spiral for me. Remember I told you I was a fat kid, okay? fat kid who's got self-esteem issues. I'm a A-type personality who likes to be in control and have everything going on. And so now what I've been doing for 15 years was gone. I hadn't been real successful in college in terms of I'd started since I was 5 years old and been the guy. In college, I was not. Now, I played at college when we won a national championship and 3 conference championships. So I was they were very good then. Still, I wasn't playing. So I had all this mental stuff. So I had surgery Easter of my junior year. And after that surgery, I became an anorexic. So I went from 275 to 165. So if you follow me on Instagram and you saw for Wendy's birthday, I posted a picture of me and her at Christmas. I am full-blown anorexic right then, 165 pounds. I look like it's an awful picture. I meant to bring it and I forgot. 275 to 165. And how I was able to fool people would say, man, you okay? I'm like, dude, I'm good. Nobody had this clue. I went from being this huge guy who had no neck to being this guy who my neck was this big around and my cheeks sunk in. So if you don't know what anorexia is, that's the ones who starve themselves. Except for I didn't starve myself. I binged. So I would eat like unbelievable amounts of food, and then I don't like to throw up. I still don't like to throw up. And if you see me throw up, I am very, very sick. So the way I would get rid of all that stuff is excessive exercise. So I would exercise for hours to get rid of that. And then I wouldn't eat for a long time, and then I would binge. And then I would exercise, and I wouldn't eat, and I would binge. So to the point when me and Wendy met, she just thought I was weird because I didn't eat sweets. If you know Wendy, that girl loves sweets. Her middle name is Sugar. It's a joke. Y'all can laugh. She really thought I was weird. She didn't tell me that till later, but she was like, I thought you were weird. You didn't eat sweets. What's wrong with you? And I tried not to eat, pizza, but when I did, I would just she never said nothing, but I gorged. And so how God works is he put me in her family. If you've ever met Wendy's mom, that woman can cook, okay? And so an anorexic who likes to eat but is not around food, because remember, I live by myself. I'm teaching and coaching. And so I met her, we started dating. I started going to her house. Remember, I'm that southern gentleman too. I grew up in that southern home where you don't hurt people's feelings, so you eat. I was coaching wrestling at the time, so I was good. I could lose it and be okay. Wrestling season ended, and I had a dilemma. So Wendy found out I was anorexic, and so she's the one who saved me, because if not, I don't know. Like I say, at 165, I already had bones sticking out that I shouldn't have had sticking out. So she was my angel, to say the least. Professionally, just so you know all the things I've done. I taught social studies, U.S. history, economics, and government at Greenville High. I coached football, wrestling, and baseball. I have been assistant principal. I've been a principal. I've been a charter school principal. I've been an assistant superintendent, a superintendent. I worked for a charter school company out of Florida for 2 years. I came home this summer, and then now I work for a charter school district out of Columbia. So I've done a lot of stuff. Also have been a high school wrestling official, a high school basketball official. I've been a college professor, so I've done a lot of stuff. And Ricky makes fun of me like Steve and calls me doctor all the time. I do have a doctorate degree. I told you that nobody in my family went to college, so I decided to get one for everybody. So I actually have 4 college degrees. Again, that A-type personality, got to accomplish stuff. Yeah, Ricky's diploma actually has my name on it too, because I'm going to tell a funny story on Ricky. So the first time when Ricky was getting his bachelor's degree, he brought me a paper and said, I just need you to proof this. I said, Ricky, who wrote this? This is awful. I used like 5 red pens on the one paper. So I realized then it was going to be I was like, okay, Lord, we're going to start praying for this man to finish school. So if you're afraid you can't finish college, if Ricky Moats can graduate from college, anybody can. So Wendy's already told you about our kids and our grandbaby. We also have a soon-to-be son-in-law. I will not tell their testimony. That is theirs to tell. But Mike and Ferris have an unbelievable testimony. And young adults have heard some of it. But just the fact of the two of them getting married in May is a huge prayer request and a huge praise, grace of God. So I'll stop there. But I lived a life of, Wendy talked about, she was a goody-goody, is what we called them in school. She was a goody-goody. I was not. I was the kid who, I was in with all the popular people too, but I did whatever I had to do to be in that group. So I drank, smoked, I did some drugs. I was always, it's so funny how you do some, you're like, oh, I'm not going to do that. That's too much. You're such an idiot, Bill. You know, my 17th birthday, I thought I would see how many I could drink. So just so you understand how bad I was, at 17 years old, I could drink 32 beers. So you understand. I was not in a good place. Okay? Living double lives. Straight A's in school, all-star football player, 6th in state my senior year in wrestling. All of those things. I went to church every time the doors open. I ran the sound booth at church. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. And I lived a complete different life. So I was Jekyll and Hyde. That's why I say it's good, and God knew not to have social media around when I grew up, because I'd be in trouble. Yeah, I did all kinds of things I regret now, and so I wished I hadn't. The bad part is I have an addictive personality. So you got to be addicted to something. So in 1992, August of 1992, I decided, why am I doing this? I stopped drinking in 1992, and I haven't had an ounce of alcohol since then. And really don't have any desire, to be honest, because I didn't like what it tasted like, to be honest with you, and I sure didn't like what it did to me. I'm not going to lie. I liked what it did to me then, and then later I hated it, because then the after effects after it wore off, or the other stuff. And then I had to figure out, okay, what did I do? Because remember, I'm a teetotaler. I've never had a social drink in my life. I was 0 to ballistic every time. God used many things in my life. I was that idiot kid who would take downers, drink alcohol, and take uppers at the same time. Folks, that's not good. If you study anything in chemistry, you don't take opposites. That just tears your heart up. That's the life I lived. And so, luckily, Wendy didn't know me back then. She would have not have gone out with me if she'd have known all that. But God has used my story and her story over the years, because we're yin-yang. She has one side and I have the other. But the funny part is, even though she didn't drink, she didn't smoke, she didn't cuss, guess what? She still had sins, she still had struggles. It just wasn't the same as mine. Mine were all these addictive things that I had put in my life to be cool. Or so I thought. So what I want to leave you with tonight is 3 things. If you're a note taker, you can write these down. The 3 things are, you are worthy, don't quit, and stay focused. Okay? So let's jump into the first one. You are worthy. John 1:12 says, He gave the right and the power to become children of God to those who received Him. He gave this to those who put their trust in His name. Folks, if you don't know it, we are royalty. We're a child of the King. And we don't always act that way, but that's who we are. So Satan in the world tells us we're worthless, we're nobodies, we're ugly, fat, useless. I told you, I lived that lie. When I was in elementary school, I grew up on a farm. I wore a belt buckle that had a pig on it, okay? As a little fat kid, you should never wear a belt buckle that has a pig on it. Because guess what somebody said to me? Is that a self-portrait? And, I was like, laughed. But guess what? Inside, tore up. But that's those things. Satan allowed those things to happen. The world will tell us those things. Once we accept Jesus, we become a child of the King. If you ever go anywhere, let me ask you this. You ever been somewhere with somebody who was well known? What happens when you're with those folks? Yeah, hey, I'm with the man. You know, if you somebody who is local famous, or they know, my kids used to always like being with me when I was a principal because I had the keys to everything. They could get in anywhere they wanted to. They run the school, or so they thought. So you're treated like royalty. So there's a movie called The Lion King. Y'all seen The Lion King, right? There's a scene in there, and you have to watch it when you go back. I've got it on my iPad, but it's so small I don't think y'all will be able to see it. It's when Simba and Nala are in that cave, and the 3 hyenas have kind of cornered them. Y'all flashing back with me? And so Simba is like, he's going to roar. He's like, roar. And the 3 hyenas do what? They're like laughing like, oh, yeah, we're scared. And about that time, he's gonna do it again. And what happens? Mufasa roars, and their eyes get real big, and Mufasa just kind of wipes them out. And he tells them, as he's got them laying on the ground, if you ever try to touch my son again, and they're like, oh, he's your son? We didn't know he was your son. And of course, you know, you got the one kind of dumb hyena. They go, did you know? He's like, uh-huh. So anyway, they run off. The story why I tell you that is, what happened to Simba in and of himself? He thought he was strong, right? But he wasn't. I can handle this. If you watch the story, his dad's fussing at him because he put himself in danger. And he thought, I was trying to be like you. How many times do we try to be like God? And we say, I can do this on my own. Remember my A-type personality? God, I can fix this. You just sit over there in a corner. I'll let you know when I need you. The sad part is we do that all the time with God. And then he has to come roaring in and save us because we get ourselves in such a mess. We think we can handle it, but outside of Christ, we are nothing. We are worthy because we've been redeemed by Jesus. He died on the cross to take our shame away. So here's a big point for you. Don't let Satan tell you lies and tell you that you're not worthy. He'll do it. Remember, folks, I'm a recovered anorexic. I can tell you, I looked in the mirror all the time and said, I'm not worthy. I'm that fat kid. You know, I'm useless. Don't listen to that. The second one, don't quit. What you see as a mess, God sees as an opportunity. What you see as weakness, God sees as potential. In 1 Samuel, we read the story of a terrible situation that David was facing. Y'all, this is bad. His father-in-law Saul was trying to kill him. He had been running for his life every day for 13 years. His possessions had been burned. His wives and all of the wives and children of his men had been taken. And his own men wanted to stone him. His father-in-law trying to kill him for 13 years. All of his possessions had been taken. His wives, all of his men's wives and kids had been taken away. And now his men are mad at him and trying to stone him. All right? Yet, this is what he said in 1 Samuel 36. And David was very troubled because the people talked about killing him with stones. For all the people were very angry in their sorrow for their sons and daughters. But, what does it mean when you hear the word but? Forget everything you heard before, because what's coming after is the most important. But David got his strength from himself. Is that right? No. Who did he get his strength from? God. So even in the worst of times, he relied on God. Things looked bleak. David was in a situation where everything said, be discouraged, be dismayed. But David encouraged himself in the Lord. How do you think he encouraged himself in the Lord? How can you do that? You can pray. What else? Read the Bible. I heard today as I'm driving to Columbia, a preacher said, Bible. You know what it stands for? Basic instructions before leaving Earth. I thought that was pretty cool. Basic instructions before leaving Earth. Reading the Bible. He took the word and began to encourage himself, and it was only a matter of hours until God had promised him, and it had come to pass, and he became the king. If he had given in at the last minute, he would have lost everything. So the bad part, there's a lot of people who stand strong, but then they give in and they lose out in the end. Wendy didn't tell you some of her story. She had given up because she had dated a guy for 3 years. Just be honest, he cheated on her, and so they broke up. She was heartbroken, and then, unfortunately for her, I came into her life, and so 13 months from the first date, we're married. So she went from, I've lost everything, 3 years of investment in this guy, and not only did it not work out, he cheated on me. And then 13 months later, we get married. So the last one, stay focused. Anyone ever been through, that drunk driving simulation? They do it with a golf cart. They put the goggles on you. Some of y'all have never done that? Y'all need to do that. If they bring it to your school, you need to do it. Somebody done it? Has anybody done it? It is the weirdest thing in the world. Have you done it, Wendy? You put these goggles, I guess because I was a principal, we used to always bring them. Y'all just got boring principals. Look, he's like, well. So you put these goggles on, and it's supposed to simulate like you're drunk. And so since none of you have done it, I'll tell you, you put those goggles on, and everything's blurry. It's like a mess. And so they put you on this golf cart and try to get you to drive. Nobody does real well because of the way the goggles are. So Peter's a good example of what happens when we take our eyes off Jesus. Matthew 14:28-30 says, and Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it be thou, bid me come unto thee on the water. And Jesus said, come. And when Peter came down out of the ship, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But, what I tell you happens, what's before but? Forget everything before but, because what after is the important part. Good job. It says, but when he saw the winds blowing, he was afraid and began to sink. And he cried out, saying, Lord, save me. What happened? We ever get distracted? Anybody ever get distracted? You're doing good. I'm going to church. I'm reading my Bible. I'm praying. Then what? The wheels fall off the bus. Or it's real subtle. It's just, like today. My today was different than my normal day. I went to a school today instead of going straight to my office. So anytime I'm driving to my office, my prayer journal's beside my seat. I pull it out and I pray. Pray through my prayer journal. This morning, because I was different, what did I do? I didn't pray this morning. Now, I've prayed, but I didn't pray over my prayer journal. So Satan will do that. He'll get us out of our routine. He'll mess with us, and all of a sudden, 2 or 3 days later, we're like ill, fussing, yelling at our parents. Our parents are yelling at us, and we're like, what happened? On Sunday, I was at the altar. I stood up, prayed with Ricky. I felt great. Here it is Tuesday, and I'm grounded. That's the reality. Because, I don't know about y'all, but my kids, all it took for them to have a smart mouth. And they didn't, give me your phone. Give me your keys. How am I going to get to school? You can have your keys back. It doesn't take much. He'll get us off. Wendy and I, it's like We can be doing great, and all of a sudden, it don't take much for us because I told y'all we're opposites. And I am very sarcastic. That is one of the things I have to work very hard on. And so part of that is being a high school principal. It works very well being a high school principal because you can say things to people like, that's better than your hair. You know, I used to tell people all the time, this isn't nice, but, I'd say things, people say, your tie doesn't match. I go, yeah, but I can change my tie. You can't change your face. And so I got used to all that. Well, that works great at school. Everybody laughs and say, oh, you're funny. You're so cool. I go home and I get in trouble. Because she didn't think that was funny. Or I'll say stuff, and all of a sudden, I have a tone. I've heard that 1,000,000 times. It's your tone. And I do. Because I've got one of our kids has the same personality. And it's a wonder I didn't beat her to death. Because her tone about got her killed. Not really, but she stayed in trouble because of her tone. It says, as soon as Peter took his eyes off Jesus and looked at the stormy sea, he began to sink. So think if he had kept his eyes on Jesus, what he could have accomplished. He'd have been walking on the water. He could have walked all the way to Jesus, and they could have talked, and they could have kept walking. But instead, as soon as he took his eyes off, he began to sink. So the last thing, the Bible says, Isaiah 26:3, the Lord will keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed. Our peace is linked directly to what we think. Did you hear that? Our peace is linked directly to what we think. Whatever you think, that's the way it is. So 3 things for you to remember. You are worthy. Because you are a child of the King. Don't quit. With Jesus in your corner, you'll never be counted out. He's going to win in the end. You can read the last chapter of the book. We win. The last one is stay focused. If you lose your focus, you'll start to sink. And you'll spiral out of control like I did. Questions for me? And Ricky said you would not be able to talk.
I just want to reiterate, like Bill talking about his life as a teenager versus mine. Just because I wasn't doing all the things he was doing did not mean that I was not a sinner, that I was not making mistakes. And I think sometimes we look at somebody that's doing all that stuff and we're not, and it's like, well, we must be better than them. We all sin every day. And even though I wasn't out partying and drinking and getting drunk, there were other things in my life that I shouldn't have been doing. And I just want to reiterate that just because you're not doing maybe the big things that we put in the world as bad doesn't mean that you're not sinning. And I think we need to realize that I was doing things that I shouldn't have been doing either, or making wrong choices. They weren't just as weren't big, visible things maybe that he was doing. So I think, but also at the end of the day, if you guys have done things or whatever, all you have to do, if you're a Christian, is go to God and realize what you're doing is wrong. That's the thing, it's like when God looks down at me and Bill, he didn't say, okay, he was getting drunk, but she cheated on that test. So definitely his is a lot worse than hers. You understand what I'm saying? It's all the same. When God looks down on that sin, me maybe looking at my friend's paper, which I did some in high school. I wasn't that A student, so I struggled. So I'm like, how can I do good on my test? I'll be honest. When he looks at me cheating and looks at Bill getting drunk, it's all the same in God's eyes. So don't feel like, okay, well, I've done so much worse things than this person, so I'm a lot worse person than them. To God, sin is sin. Somebody that kills somebody and somebody that's talking about gossiping, talking about their friend, it's all the same in God's eyes. And I think we all need to realize that, But with God, you can turn from those things and ask for forgiveness, and God does not hang on to that stuff. Thank you, Lord, that he has forgiven me for those things and has forgiven Bill for those things. But, as I said, sin is sin, and as a kid, little things that we do, you know, talking about somebody, leaving somebody out. I know girls. I mean, it's rough because girls, I think, can be a lot more backbiting and worse than the boys can. You know, I mean, it's just, and that three's a crowd. You know, somebody's gonna be left out and all that. I've been through all that, even with my own kids, but just those things to God are just as bad as Bill going out and getting drunk. You know, and I know it's hard to wrap your mind around that sometimes, but it is, because it's wrong too, and it's sin. So I just want you to know that, you know, even if you've made mistakes, you know, or things, or maybe you're doing those things. Maybe you're doing things right now, or not living the life that you should be living. You know, it's time to change, and right now we can make those changes. You know, and you just have to ask God to forgive you, you know, and turn from those ways, and he will do it.
So we'll go deeper. Both of us will be at Big Bear. Of course, I'll be with the guys. Wendy will be with the girls, and so we'll have plenty of time there to talk further. But I always want to say this: as the band comes up, let's pray real quick. Most gracious Heavenly Father, Lord, Lord, I thank you for these young people, dear Lord. I thank you for what you're doing in their lives, dear Lord, and for, dear Lord, just the stand that they have to take every day, dear Lord, to be that godly person, dear Lord, and just try to live for you, Lord. I pray for them. I pray that you would give them grace and mercy, dear Lord, as they try to do the right things, dear Lord, and just try to live for you. And I pray now, dear Lord, as we leave here tonight, dear Lord, I pray that you would take something that Wendy and I said, dear Lord, and help it to pierce their heart, help them to learn and to grow from that, dear Lord, and just use it in their life on the daily. Be with us now. Just guide and lead everything that we do.